Farming in the Okanagon by Daniel, Luke, and Alex. The Okanagon is located in the southern interior of British Columbia.
Because of its location, the Okanagon tends to have hot and dry summers. In the Okanagon Valley, fruits and vegetables flourish in its hot summer climate.
In the 1800s, European miners and farmers arrived in the Okanagon Valley. Euro-Canadian social, economical, and political structures replaced First Nations' traditional way of life. To avoid conflict with the First Nations people, Governor James Douglas negotiated fair peace agreements.
His agreements let the First Nations people keep their traditional land, which gave them room to raise cattle, farm, hunt, and fish. Local Lands Commissioner William Cox, along with the Okanagon chiefs, marked out big reserves of land for the First Nations people.
However, due to the rising number in settlers, the marked out reserves were ignored to give more land to Euro-Canadians. In the final decades of the 1800s, ranching became the way of life because it was easy to acquire large amounts of grassland.
By the end of the 1800s, the cattle industry was disappearing. This was due to the grasslands being overgrazed. As more settlers arrived, the land was divided into smaller sections. Fruit farming became the new form of agriculture in the Okanagon Valley.
More people had turned to farming in the Okanagon, and the fields were expanded until there was no room left on the reserves. Because of special laws governing the First Nations people in the Okanagon Valley, they could not acquire additional land. Instead, the reserves kept on shrinking.
The Indian Act restricted the ability of the First Nations people to be able to farm. This was because they could not own their own land and were unable to obtain water rights or loans for their crops. The water rights were controlled by the provincial government under the British Columbia Water Act. This resulted in First Nations farmers stealing water in order to save their crops. Even though they were trying to save their crops, they were thrown in jail.
Instead of becoming successful farmers, the First Nations people in the Okanagon Valley had to settle for working on the farms that they had previously owned, as laborers for the Euro-Canadians. The present-day cities and towns of the Okanagon Valley are built on top of traditional land that was once owned by First Nations people.
Done.